gentlemen, boys and girls, sisters and brothers, brothers and sisters, husband and wives, boyfriends and mistresses. Welcome to, guys, welcome to the Gorden and Martha Dove podcast, The Nest, that place where you can come, where you want to feel like you belong, where you want to feel like you can tell all your secrets, where you want to feel like you could be encouraged and inspired, where you want to feel like you can just lay down your hair, lay down your hat, and be who you always want to be. Guys, we're here in the house, in the nest, and welcome. We just moved to another state from where we've been living our entire life. Yeah. Not only did we just move, we moved here. We brought all of our kids, 5 children, and we got new jobs. And so that has been absolutely crazy for us.
Definitely.
You're teaching now.
Teaching at a new school.
New flow. In a pandemic. I came on staff at an actual ministry as a pastor on staff. And so I'm getting used to that particular flow. How has this time been?
It's honestly been very chaotic for the both of us, and we're definitely trying to make sure that our schedules are not conflicting with family, like what we said before, and that we're able to find the time to spend with each other. But it's definitely very chaotic. Trying to navigate and trying to figure out new systems has been a challenge. Trying to learn new curriculums and how things are being done in a new facility, new organizations. It's definitely been a challenge, and I've seen the both of us spend a lot of sleepless nights trying to make sure that all the preliminary things are done, the behind the scenes are done with lesson planning and trying to create systems and structures for the ministry. It's just a lot of sleepless nights right now. And then we're also in the midst of all of this, in this transition, trying to start our...
Everything.
I didn't know you were shaking your head. I didn't know
everything.
You were say
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so it's been very chaotic. Not only did we transition to a new place and both start new jobs and try to learn those new structures, we're also working on our album. And I know many people are wondering, like, when are we going to get this music?
Absolutely.
So every Friday, Gorden and I also scheduled to try, or every other Friday, when it gets really chaotic, we've been trying to schedule time to record.
Absolutely.
So trying to manage everything.
5 kids yelling. They need to be quiet.
It's overwhelming.
It has been overwhelming.
But we're trying to make it work because we know that God has a call on our life. And there's fruit that we have to bear. So in the midst of all the chaos, and I know some of you, even on my videos when I post, you're like, well, how are you able to do all of this? Sometimes I question, but every day I get up and I say, Lord, give me the strength and the grace to be productive today.
But guys, we have an announcement to make. As of October the 6th, we have been married for 13 years.
Right, I forgot that, yeah.
13 years. Martha.
13 years
our
with this
wedding
guy.
Anniversary. I was going to say anniversary. 13 long years that this young lady has been able to put up with this beautiful, understanding man.
As you burp.
As I burp my black tea all over the place. But 13 years being married. Can you just talk about like some things that you've learned through these 13 years? Things that you...
So 2 things that I learned about marriage.
That's deep. Come on, let's go.
I think one of the main things that I'm learning, and one thing that I know that many of us need to learn, is that marriage is not about the happily ever after.
Okay.
It's about the better or worse. Let me say that again. One thing in particular that I've learned about marriage is that it's not necessarily about the happily ever after, but it's more about the for better or worse. Many of us have, and myself in particular, I'll just speak from my standpoint, okay? We have been so focused on what we've seen, whether it be in the media, whether it be from our parents, or from our friends, those that are older around us, our elders. We've gotten so focused on what we've seen from them and their highlights, that their highlights and what we've seen in the movie reels become, and they get into our psyche, and we start to believe that that's the way it's supposed to be. So myself in particular, coming into marriage, I had this perspective of where there was going to be this prince that rides in on the white horse, or there was going to be this handsome guy that comes in the mist, and everybody wants this guy, and he just has all these amazing attributes, and he's always going to have all these amazing attributes, and he's just going to love me unconditionally, and he's going to shower me with all these gifts, and all these amazing things are going to happen always. And you know how these movies go. And
deep, sister.
We're just going to just fall in love, and we'll stay in love, and we'll get married, and we'll live happily ever after. You know how it goes. But the reality is that there's going to be tension. One of the greatest lessons that I've learned in marriage is that there will be tension. There will be a struggle. There will be challenges. There will be obstacles. But through those obstacles and challenges, we can make it. We can make it through that because we've made a vow and we've made a commitment to God. And we're going to overcome it because we're in it together. We're one. We're one. So that's one of the major things that I've learned in marriage, that there will be tension, and to focus more so on the for better or worse, and not just the glitz and the glam and the blissful moments.
And not focus on other people's highlights.
And not focus on other people's highlights.
Right. Don't try to look like the Jones.
Right. Because social media can be tricky.
It will be tricky.
What do you think about that?
And I mean, just to piggyback off that for you, and then I'm going to jump into my two. To give a point to that is, every marriage is absolutely different.
Every marriage is for sure different.
Doesn't matter if your mother and father had a marriage that looked one way, your grandmother and grandfather had a marriage that looked one way, your godmother, godfather, neighbors in the community, people that were a part of your church, your best friend's mother and father had a marriage that looked one way. Doesn't matter how their marriages look. No matter how much you borrow from all of those great examples, your marriage will always have something that causes it to be customized in a different way.
Right.
And that kind of sounds like what you were saying, that every marriage is similar to a fingerprint. That although all of us have fingerprints, no individual fingerprint is exactly the same.
Right. Think about me and Mary. We're twins.
You're literally twins.
But our fingerprints, our DNA is still, there's some differences.
And so
our personalities, as you see from what we show you,
exactly,
it's different.
And so with that being said, people need to understand that. And then when they understand that, it'll take a little bit of pressure off them of feeling like they're not where they should be. They're too far ahead or they're too far back. Just work within the means of what you have.
Right, and I think you kind of got to my next point about what I've learned about marriage.
Yeah.
One being, as I stated earlier, that you have to focus more so on the for better or worse. And another one being that my marriage is not going to be like everyone else's marriage. It's completely different. It's completely unique to the two individuals who are within the marriage. Okay? Because honestly, what works for Gorden and I, it may not work for you. Okay? So you have to figure out what works for you and your spouse, or you and your significant other, and then move forward with that. So I think marriage, honestly, in order for it to work and thrive, it's about you educating yourself. Yes, about marriage, but also educating yourself about your spouse or significant other. What are those things that he or she needs in order to thrive or to feel loved? So spending time with them, like we talked about quality time earlier, spending time with them to kind of invest that time with them, but spend time with them to get to know what their quirks are, what their pet peeves are, and then kind of moving forward from that.
I'll jump in. I have a few things that I learned. One is laughter is absolutely necessary.
Definitely necessary. Because I could be fussing Gorden completely out and he'll do something to make me laugh. And that just changes the whole mood of the conversation. Kind of just jump right out of it after that. So,
no matter what comes and goes in your marriage, no matter how tough times get, no matter the highs, lows, no matter the roundabouts, the surprises, no matter how the terrain changes in different seasons through age, through expectations not being met, always laugh and laugh often. Because it's something about laughter that is like medicine.
It's so good for your soul.
Yeah, even the scriptures talks about it. It's in Proverbs where it talks about how laughter is literally good for the soul. It's like medicine. And that's something that has been an absolute tool and weapon. For my marriage when it gets hard. We find those moments of joy. The Bible says that this joy that I have, the world didn't give it, and the world couldn't take it away. And if the world didn't give it, that means God gave it. And so laughter, that joy in our marriage, when things get crazy, it's a reminder of God's presence in our marriage.
And I think it's a reminder also of God's goodness.
And goodness. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I feel like our laughter brings us closer together.
Absolutely.
Keeps things light. You have to keep it light.
The next thing that I've learned in marriage is almost, it's a lesson that most athletes know about. If you watch ESPN, you're going to know about this particular lesson. All right. Most football players know this. If you have ever watched it and you've been a quarterback, any coach that's coaching you, and if you're a quarterback, you know this, he'll say, you have to have a short memory. Right? And so a lot of times in marriage, it's the same way. Quarterbacks, they'll throw an interception in one drive, right? And they'll come to the sideline and the coach say, don't worry about it. Because after these 4 downs, you got to go right back out and start throwing again. And if you let that interception get in your head, then the rest of the game, you'll start performing at that level and your confidence won't be where you need to be. And you'll feel like that one mistake dictates the rest of the game. That's how marriage is. You have to have a short memory. And although something happens, you guys go through a tough time, you cannot allow that tough time, that one situation, that mishap dictate the rest of your marriage.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that I've learned in 13 years. The third thing that I've learned in 13 years, and I think I'm going to give two, but I'm going to give you one more. No, I'm going to give you one more. It is simply this. And it falls on line with communication. That it's important for you to learn the love language of your spouse. Mm-hmm. Right? For me, words of affirmation speak to me. Right? For my wife, acts of service speak to her. What you'll find out in marriage is when you first come into a marriage, before you become one, you both are yelling and speaking to get your point across. And you say, man, I've been telling you how I feel and you're not paying attention to it. But in marriage, it's less about what you're saying and what you want to say, and more about how does your spouse hear what you say. And so that's one of the things that I've tuned into as far as communication. Let's forget about how loud I am, what I'm saying, and how tough I'm saying it. But I've tuned into the fact that my wife loves acts of service. So the moment that I jump into doing something or taking the initiative to be the first to walk in some type of act of service, automatically, no matter what she does when I do that, her eyes pop up. She starts to notice. She's like, oh, babe, I see you. the moment that I go through that window or that gate, now whatever else it is that I'm trying to communicate, it allows me to communicate. So I would say learn the love languages, because I'm telling you, it is true that once you learn those, you'll start unlocking the secrets of how your spouse really communicates and listens.
So let's talk about the 5 love languages.
All right, got you.
It's acts of service.
Got you.
Gifts. Quality time.
Quality time, that's right.
Words of affirmation.
Yes, right. That's one of my favorites.
And then there is...
acts of service.
We say acts of service. Quality time. Gifts.
Words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation. And then physical touch.
Physical touch. Words of affirmation.
Those are Gordon's 2 love languages.
Hers is active service and quality time.
Quality time. And also words of affirmation.
Yeah.
I need that. You know, a girl needs that every once in a while.
So she has...
I have 3.
3.
But my bottom would be the words of affirmation.
Gotcha.
Top,
for me,
acts of service.
Top for me is going to be words of affirmation and then physical touch.
I remember yesterday, me and Gorden got into a bit of an argument. And I don't even know what we were arguing about. And I took my hand and rubbed the back of his neck. And he just calmed.
Immediately.
He calmed down so quickly. He was like, down, doggy.
The moment she put her hand, like we were literally arguing about something. The moment she put her hands on my neck, I was just like, and she was like.
But that goes back to educating yourself. And now that we have started to learn more about the love languages and really spent time to kind of be educated in that, when we got in that argument, I reminded myself, oh man, what is his love language? Is physical touch. So let me touch the back of his neck. And it worked.
Shut me down. I couldn't even, it was just like.
Right.
It was over.
We were reading the book, and one of the gentlemen, it's by Gary Chapman. So if you haven't read it, go get the 5 love languages. It's kind of an older book, but it definitely has some tools in there that will help your marriage so much.
Profound truths.
He was on a plane, and there was a gentleman who asked him what he did for a living. And after asking what he did for a living, the gentleman then proceeded to ask him, because Gary Chapman told him that he was a marriage counselor and he did all these works in the whole marital field. And the gentleman said he had been meaning to ask someone for a long time, where does the love go after marriage? Because it just seems like after you get married, the love just kind of just dissipates. You spend all this time pre-marriage courting the person, dating them, giving them the best that you have. And then you get married and it's like things change. You really don't want to spend your time with this person anymore. They're kind of getting on your nerves. You feel like the love has just completely gone.
Yep.
So he was asking him, where does the love go? And I feel like a lot of us in marriage or in relationships, and we spend a long time with the person, we start to ask those questions unconsciously, or we kind of hide those thoughts because we know that maybe this isn't the right way to feel. Mm-hmm. But we ask ourselves the question, where does the love go? Where does it go, Gorden? What happens? What do you think happens?
I don't think the love goes anywhere. I think that the love is still there. I think that we have unrealistic expectations. I think that our expectations are set by movies. They're set by other people's story. They're set by, not even other people's story, other people's highlights. We develop these expectations from those. And so what happens is we don't even have a realistic view when we come into marriage of what love is.
Right.
But when we have a biblical view of what love is, I think it brings us closer to where we should stand, that we understand that love is patient, love is kind.
It doesn't boast.
It doesn't boast. It doesn't keep a record of
wrongdoing.
Wrongdoing. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't boast. When we really start looking at what is the biblical view of love, what does love say? Right? When I'm being sacrificed, when nobody's paying attention to my opinion, when it seems like my husband or my wife is not paying me any mind, it seems like they just disregard me, when it seems like they're literally sacrificing my offering, who I am. I'm giving everything for them, and they're just literally sacrificing it on the cross of their own intention and their own way and their own will, what is the response of love? Love says, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
But you know what love also says?
What does it say?
I'm going to put you before myself.
Absolutely.
It's a decision that you make to be in that covenant. Or
what would be the first word when you say love and you put the little equal sign, and then we're going to go into listing what love it is. What love is, the first word right behind love being underlined and in bold is sacrifice. Yeah. Like, it's crazy.
Because the love that we saw was not sacrifice. The love that we saw was what?
Was what?
I cherish you. It was adoration. It was a fantasy. The view of love is social programming. Is what it was. Is what we saw. We saw a script. We saw the best parts of love. We saw those highlight exciting moments is what we saw. And we thought that those moments would be an eternity. We thought they would last forever. And they don't last forever. You're going to experience your highs and lows in marriage. God knows Gorden and I have experienced them. We've questioned at times whether or not this was for us. Just like many of you, I'm sure, have.
Absolutely.
But we did not let go. We made the decision that we're going to hang in there. Because this marriage was given to us. It was divine and it was predestined by God that we be together. Right? And when we talk about scripture, we also need to consider the fact that people perish because of a lack of knowledge. So it's not necessarily that you just falling out of love, but it may just be that you haven't educated yourself about your marriage, but also educated yourself about your spouse to learn those things that he or she really needs in order to have their love tank full. So it's important that we lay our baggage down. We come completely honest into a relationship, letting our partner know what it was that we dealt with in our past and kind of try to work through it together, but also focus on forward. Don't live in resentment. Like Gorden said, try to have a short-term memory. Don't hold on to those things or those situations that may have happened yesterday or may have happened an hour ago. Try to focus on forward and try to find the goodness in every moment with your spouse. Because as we know in COVID, as we know in our current state, the world's current state, we got to hold on to these moments with each other because anything can happen.
Yeah, I like that. Did you hear that anywhere? Focus on forward?
No, I just can't.
Absolutely like that. F on F.
F on F. What?
Focus on forward.
F on F.
No, seriously. I like that. I think that is a great conclusion to our conversation. Focus on forward. Because here's the thing. You can't do anything about what has been. You cannot change the past. It's already happened. The mistakes you've made, you've already made them. The bad decisions, you've already made them. You can't change that, but what you can do, you can course correct what's to come. And so I think that if relationships would focus on forward, marriages focus on forward, premarital couples that are entering into the thought of being married, focus on forward. Focus on forward to finish.